This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guest today is an Emmy-nominated actor. Starting his career as a child, he's grown up to be one of the most respected and versatile character actors of his generation. Starting his career with guest roles in TV shows such as The Twilight Zone, X-Files, he soon got starring roles in The Boiler Room, Gone in 60 Seconds, and Saving Private Ryan. Or you may know him as Phoebe's brother from Friends, or Sneaky Pete, or for that dance in Ted. We chat about working with James Cameron on the Avatar movies, why he's still passionate about making movies, and getting behind the camera for his latest movie, the breathtaking Strange Darling. Our guest today is actor and now cinematographer Giovanni Ribisi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah. Oh wait, can you? I'm just turning my video on.
Oh,
Hi,
good, man. Hi, how's it going?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks so much for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah,
I'd love to ask, your career has been, I feel like you've kind of had a go at everything, and now that you're having a go with the camera and it's mad, but I'd love to go back to how it started for you. Where did that love of, performing and making movies, where did that come from as a kid, I guess?
I think there's a part of me that I mean, it came. I think the first movie that I saw was Star Wars, and I grew up in Los Angeles, and there's a part of me that wonders how I could have avoided becoming an actor or getting involved, because even at that time in the 80s, it was just everywhere. I mean, this is the synonymous thing with Los Angeles or Hollywood, right? Is the industry out here. And my mother was supportive enough to indulge her kids and go, okay, great, we're gonna do that. There was also somebody who like a neighbor down the street. They also got into acting, and so this was the perfect justification for me to look at my mom and be like, see. And so when they got an agent, we met with that agent, and then we started. I started running around, and I think that the first job that I did was a Union 76 commercial, a gas, the gas company. And so yeah, there was that phase of it, and then you start working as an actor, because there's not a lot of child actors, and so it's like, so I got on a television show, and it was like, oh right, responsibility, and I think I was like 10 or 11 years old, and over the course of 3 years, I really sort of grew to dislike especially doing television. And at that time it was cable television, and you really start getting pinned in a box, and people start going, oh, you're this type of character, and this is what you're getting cast as, and all that. And then it really wasn't until I was 15 or 16 years old that I discovered all of the folks from the Actors Studio, like Lee Strasberg and Marlon Brando and James Dean, and then the generation after that with Al Pacino and De Niro and all those guys, and it was also seeing. I mean, it was just, there was something that hit me like a fucking like a lightning bolt, and so then I started studying acting, and it became a completely different thing from doing hokey cable television shows that I was embarrassed of, to reaching for something that was almost felt unattainable, in someone like Marlon Brando or Laurence Olivier, or at the time, when I'm in acting class at the time, I'm going to the movies, and I'm seeing a young Gary Oldman and a young Daniel Day-Lewis, and I'm seeing Robert De Niro do Cape Fear, and the musculature that he,
Oh man, so good.
and even before that with the Untouchables, and so and it was also just a great teacher. So I think it was a lot of that. I remember, and this is before I had a cell phone. I think I was in the acting class. I was doing 3 classes a week, rehearsing 5 scenes a week. I was on a hokey TV show, a sitcom. So I was doing that, and I was going on like 3 auditions a day. And I and I
Wow.
but and I remember having that thought, sort of like doing all that math and going how and now I look back, I don't even know how that's possible, but it was just being so hungry and just not saying no. Just like going, working towards that.
Mm,
And it's an interesting thing because a lot of people don't realize that um, that it takes that kind of work.
mm,
They think they have to be at a certain party, that was never a focus for me. It was always trying to just be a better actor, I guess.
mm. And do
While
you
I was on a sitcom.
remember? Sorry.
No, no, I was saying be a better actor while I was on a sitcom, which doesn't really make sense.
We've all been there on those jobs where you're like, oh, I really want to be. I'm here and I'm thankful for it, but I want to be over there, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of actors are a bit like that, aren't they? There's always something greener over the other side.
Sure,
Do you,
sure.
do you remember the moment where you felt like you got a job and you were like, this is where I should be. Right in the right place here. And um,
No, I've always been the greener grass guy. Like,
yeah.
and I mean, it really, like, I don't know. There was a certain point, and I think that it comes back to being 9 years old and or 10 years old and seeing myself on television for the first time. We didn't have cable. My family, we really poor growing up, and so we went over to the neighbor's house, and they had cable, and we all gathered around and watched this episode, and I was mortified. Even at that age, I was appalled at how awful I was.
Mm,
And from that moment, it was like really this strange formative thing where behind a lot of the sort of impetus of acting choices um and doing portraying a character or whatever is really just trying not to be embarrassed.
yeah.
Or trying to avoid embarrassment. But then you realize that that's the whole purpose of a character. Really, is
Mm,
this just total exposure
mm.
and vulnerability, and you do have to humiliate yourself. I mean, that's part of what it is. And so I remember I sort of blindly jumped onto this movie that a friend of mine was making. Uh, and because they were my friends, so I said, yes, yeah, I absolutely, let me read your script. And then it was like the first thing was like I'm completely naked in a shower, trying to fondle somebody else. And it was just
What a start.
like, oh God, yeah, it just sort of summed it all up for me, I guess. And then I was like, no more. I gotta be the person behind the camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, this is not where I should be.
Yeah, no.
But looking at I mean, so familiar with a lot of your movies growing up, like Gone in 60 Seconds, Saving Private Ryan, all these films
Oh
that
yeah.
I've genuinely like are in my, I could recite most of those films.
Oh yeah.
But going back to all of those, when you first got, I mean, working with, I suppose, Tom Hanks the first time was with his film where he directed it, That Thing You Do, I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah.
Did at the time were you kind of like, oh, this is a lot of pressure on my shoulders? Did you kind of realize how that film was gonna propel you, or was that kind of just another job?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there really is sort of a discipline in your head about trying to prioritize what you're doing in a career. And being a part of that acting school that I was involved in for 12 years, and the people that I was around, it was really in the 90s, there was a certain thing where it was just like material success was really, I mean, you had to train, like, that's not the priority here. It really is to try to just do something make a sacrifice for trying to be creative, really. And I'm trying to say it in a way that's not pretentious, because it truly was pretentious. I mean, it was like, oh man, like what did they do to get into their role? And how deep were they going? And living the part. And but I do have to say that as that has become sort of a pejorative thing, there's a part of me that still believes in that. Stanislavski, and I know I sound really pretentious bringing Stanislavski, but he was all about a character or an actor living their role to a certain degree that the audience would have an experience. So the more the actor had a real life experience, the more the audience did. And I really believe that, you know? And when you can go to a movie and forget that you're watching somebody like Meryl Streep or Marlon Brando, or, these actors, because you're just so carried away by the journey that their character is going on or whatever. I mean, I think this is the reason why. And it doesn't have to be something that's dramatic. Like I saw The Fall Guy recently, and I
Yeah,
just love that movie. And
so
I was
good.
just like, that's like the reason why I go to them. It
Mm,
was those performances, and I just wanted them to win, and
mm.
to work out. Both those actors are just phenomenal. And so yeah.
That's one of those films as well where I mean, I feel like it should have been one of the biggest movies of the year in terms of, but then people are saying it's flopped, which I can't believe because everyone I know has seen it and everyone's loved it. The reviews have been great and it's kind
Yeah.
of it's kind of mad. And I totally agree. I love that. And
Yeah, it's
Ryan
funny
Gosling
because
is so funny.
yeah. I mean, and the directing, the
Mm.
cinematography, everything,
And the stunts, all
the
practical.
stunts. I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
also the editing and the creativity. I mean, the writing was
Yeah.
just superb. It's funny because you have a lot of people that will just troll the internet and say, oh, it's a flop, or even journalists will say,
Mm.
because they have some idea of film finance and distribution, that means you have to make double the amount of what the production budget was to account for distribution and the theaters, what they take and the whole thing. But uh, I mean, it's a complicated racket, film
Mm.
finance and distributing a movie. And I mean, apparently what I've heard, and I don't know if this, I should probably, you can edit all this out. I think, I don't know. Apparently there's 4 million people in the world that will definitively buy Blu-rays, even in this day and age where they're
Wow.
streaming and all that stuff. And if that was a dead market, you would think that studios would give that up when
Mm.
they're doing certain deals with other producers, but no, they hold on to that on
Yeah.
top of the streaming, on top of the licensing, on top of the foreign and all that stuff. So for me, I go like, and I say this almost feeling like I want to defend Ryan Gosling and the filmmakers that were involved in The Fall Guy. That I don't know if that was a flaw. Who knows? I mean, it certainly benefits a studio to say they lost money on it, because then they're taxed, like all of
Mm.
that. It becomes a write-off. But it's so again, I don't know. Um, I just love the movie, and it's something that my kids can watch with me as well, and so yeah.
Yeah, it hits a perfect balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, great film, great film. And it's one of those films that I just feel like, yeah, as I said before, it should do really well. And I'm sure it will over time, as you say. And the fact that Blu-ray is still around,
Yeah.
that's more money and streaming and everything else. I'm sure it'll be fine. I
Yeah,
think it'll
yeah,
do
they'll
well
be
enough.
okay.
I think they'll make enough money from it. But you mentioned a while back about working with James Cameron and
Yeah.
obviously comparing that to the movie that you shot recently and that those budgets are so vastly different. Um, do you have, I mean, I think I already know the answer to this, but do you prefer one from the other, working on a huge monster movie like Avatar, or getting to have that control and working on something smaller?
Well, I definitely worked on both films in different capacities.
That's true, yeah.
And 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 they even if I would have been an actor on Strange Darling, um, there is a sort of like a discipline and I think a technique and an approach that where an actor dives in and approaches a role. But that's also part of the exciting thing about being an actor, as you know, is
Mm,
the diversity of, everything is at a certain point requires a different approach.
mm,
Um, but the Avatar movies are, um, it really comes down to who you're working with.
mm,
I mean, that's who you show up. You can be doing something that needs 18-hour days from the
mm,
crew, and if the director is supportive and has a vision and is explicit about what they want to do,
mm,
this is just incredible, and that could be an incredible experience. And I'll say this, the James Cameron is that I mean, I'll s- I really have never worked with anybody who has more of a specific vision on and also is an engineer and loves all things science uh, all things having to do with the ocean and the environment and space. And you can talk to him about quantum entanglement and all,
mm,
and you learn things in that way. And it's also just very innovative. You're doing things that really are sort of like people don't do in
mm.
movies, Um, I would say that still at the end of the day, when you've rehearsed a scene and the director says action, there's a sort of similar focus and concentration.
Mm. Well, James Cameron as well is one of those people. I feel like he's invented like equipment, cameras,
Yeah.
like for his films, and that's just madness. He
Yeah, I
doesn't
was funny
miss.
because yeah, but so I was watching with my son parts of this documentary that they had taken out from his experience. I think it was when they were developing and working on The Abyss.
Right.
And there is this close up of James Cameron in this underwater suit, and he's looking in, and the camera turns on, and you can hear him talking, and he says, "This is the first time that dialogue has been spoken underwater." And I was like, oh my God, even then, even then, he's like, pushing the envelope and
Yeah.
showing you something that you've never seen before, which I think is phenomenal, and it doesn't take $100 million to do that. I mean, I guess that's maybe easy to say, but
Mm,
you can go, uh, this is the thing, the thing that's so exciting is that as a filmmaker, and I guess it would be the challenging that no matter what, if you have an iPhone or if you have
mm,
a 65 millimeter IMAX camera, it, are you showing me something that I've never seen before?
mm,
And are you sitting down and focusing and taking the year or 2 years or 3 years, or in Jim's case, sometimes 10 years to develop a story and understand the world so deeply that yeah, this is something that's worth going out and doing because I haven't seen it before, right?
mm. Yeah, the things that he's achieved in film, and you look at something like Titanic, which was like the biggest money-making film of all time. Then
Yeah.
he topped it with his own film with Avatar, and it's
Yeah.
just like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
wow, the guy just like
Yeah.
is only beating himself.
But it's interesting also because, I've had filmmakers come here and talk about wanting to make movies and
Mm,
I would read their scripts and they were really compelling and great. And I'd sit down with them and I'd say, yeah, great. So I'm really interested. I want to be involved in this. Let me see your storyboards. And they would say, "Oh, I don't need to do storyboards." And at that moment, it was an immediate sort of thing because I would think to myself, right, so Steven Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock, they need to do storyboards, but
mm,
you don't?
mm.
Okay. you know, and this is something that you really, I mean, it takes a lot of work. There's this, the producers on Strange Darling, they were calling it, you got to have the gene, you know, you got to have that just unrelenting drive.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'd love to know what is there a name to your company that you have
it's
that
called Stelloscope.
Stethoscope? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Not that I'm thinking of trying to get a script to you, but
Yeah, no, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to know. Just
Let
wanted
me
to
see your
know.
storyboards.
Storyboards, yeah, very good.
Yeah,
I'll take that in now. I'll start doing them very soon.
right. Yeah.
And just to, I won't take too much of your time up. Any
No,
more
it's okay.
time
I'm
up.
I'm the one who's talking. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I say,
Oh no, I love it, man. I'm
talking too
genuinely
much.
fascinated. But I wanted to ask, do you have advice for, actors trying to get their foot in the door, or perhaps kind of advice that you would have given to yourself when you were starting out, if you could now? It's a weird way to put a question across, but you get what I mean.
It's such a different um world from when I was starting out. It's definitely a different focus, but I still believe like when you go see something with Ryan Gosling or some like Christian Bale or I mean these actors who throw themselves into their work like that. um I think that's just the most important thing, and the acting, the head of the school that I went to, um, which I also think is an important thing, is to get into a school.
Mm.
Um, always, he's the director, and he made several films, and he always said that going after a role is really predicated on how much you want to go after it, A, and how charming you can be. Um, and because it really is this thing. And so for me, getting my foot in the door, I mean, I begged truly. And like I remember going after a role, and I heard the director was in Italy, and I took the last $800 that I had to my name and flew to Italy and
Wow.
met them. I mean, yeah, and then and got there, and I didn't have any money. I couldn't eat, but then, and they hired me, because they were like, well, I guess, there's
You're here
something there.
now.
Even if he isn't talented, he'll be willing to do
Yeah.
do what I tell him to do. Um,
Wow, that's
yeah, I
crazy.
mean, I think that, it's just, it's just that, and also in a way, you gotta, there's a fine line there because I'm sure they thought like this is a psychopath, until I convinced them that I was just there and I wanted to help them make their movie.
Mm-mm.
So
Fair play, though. Fair
yeah.
play. That's going the extra mile. I'm taking notes. Storyboards, flight
Oh,
to
right.
Italy. That's wow, incredible. And do you look back now on, do you ever take the time to sort of look back and think, cool, that's crazy. Like back when I was so desperate to get a job and now here I am with the career I've had and what I'm doing now. Does that blow your mind or because it's
Uh,
been, a long grind, I guess it's been a gradual.
no, no, it hasn't. And I think the focus for me is really about sort of taking the reins and trying to tell my own stories,
Mm,
and both with the writing and the structure of the film, but also just visually, um, and really just working. Um, it just we've pigeonholed ourselves into a such a specific process that feels like it's becoming more and more about filling hours in a day or filling real estate on the streamers,
mm,
and you start to water down the efficacy, or and I'm sorry, but every Netflix show starts to feel like every other Netflix show. And there
mm,
was a moment there where Netflix was just like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, the show like House of Cards. It started with that, and that was something that we
Mm.
had never seen before on television. It was cinematic. It was, directed and being made by David Fincher, and the
Yeah, man, what a
acting, well, it's just
boss.
unbelievable.
Mm.
And then and so I feel like it's become something else since then. And again, I think we need to figure out a way to take the financial burden or alleviate the financial burden on it. It's always going to cost money, and you always have
Mm.
to pay people a fair wage, and you have to create a safe and creative working environment. But you have to do all of that,
Mm.
But I still think it's possible to make really great, unique, compelling films without having to spend, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mm. Mm. Well, you mentioned there obviously, saying Netflix and the shows that they bring out and stuff like that, but a show with that I really enjoyed, just it took my breath away really because I didn't know much about The Godfather, was The Offer,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
which obviously came out a couple of years ago, and I mean your performance amazing. I mean everyone in it is so great. Um and just a brilliant show, and that's the kind of show where you're like, I wish there was more of this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
cinematic.
Oh
And
yeah.
so interesting, like for someone that I didn't know anything about the making of The Godfather, and I felt like I don't know how accurate it is. I'm sure there's liberties taken, but um, you
That was
know,
a great experience. So Dexter Fletcher directed the
yeah, he
first two
legend.
episodes, and he was also someone who set up the movie.
Mm.
Uh, Sal Totino was the cinematographer. It was the first TV show he had done.
Oh
Comes
wow.
from like Ron Howard's films, and um, an amazing DP.
Mm.
Um, and Dexter kind of ruffled people's feathers because we all had extensive rehearsal time.
Mm.
He was inspiring the actors. We were all getting together for a table read, and the night before, he said, "I want everybody to write a full page character bio, and then when we get there, we're going to read them all to each other."
Oh wow, it's
And we were
intense. What?
so, and then he came up to me. He was like, "Hey, I want you to go for." So I was, oh shit. So I had to read to the entire cast, and I
Wow.
don't know, and there were some unbelievable stories, but I mean, it wasn't just breaking the ice; it was breaking the glacier. I mean, it was.
Mm.
And then he was referencing movies like I Am Cuba, the opening shot of that, and things that he wanted to do, um, which is this seminal thing. If you're not familiar, check it out. I think it's on
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, definitely.
Um, and he was just trying to push the envelope and push
Mm.
people into really not just a different experience as far as their own processes are concerned, but just a different experience in making films. He
Mm.
and his wife, and it was just it was one of the memorable experiences and great experiences for
Mm.
me.
Oh, it was
Um,
brilliant show,
yeah,
man. Really, really great, and a real surprise because I don't think it got advertised too much over here. It was on Paramount Plus,
yeah,
and so kind of stumbled upon it, and I was like, "This is amazing. Why is not everyone watching it?" I'm sure in America it did very well, but here, like, not many. I was telling my mates, I was like, "You need to watch this show. It's
oh
so good."
really? Oh wow. Oh cool.
And Dexter Fletcher we've had on the show actually, and he again like yourself, obviously you'll know he was an actor and then going into
Yeah,
directing, and I think that is just such a for me personally the directors I've worked with that have been actors previously, it's a
yeah,
different dynamic, and it's I've just really enjoyed that when I've had the chance to do it, and working with him,
yeah.
like, what was that like
Oh, it was great.
other
And
than
and then even
terrifying by the
recently
sounds of it?
I saw Mutiny on the Bounty with Anthony Hopkins
Yeah,
and Mel
yeah,
Gibson.
yeah.
And it has Daniel Day-Lewis and
Is it?
Liam
I didn't even know he was
Neeson
in it.
and Dexter, and like, oh my God. And Laurence Olivier's in it.
Yeah.
And it's just an incredible late 80s movie
Mm,
that I mean the original, there's several, but there was the one in the 50s or maybe late 50s, early 60s, with Marlon Brando. That was also beautifully shot. But that story, yeah. So Dexter's like, I think he seems like he's 14 years old in that movie.
You realize he's in films like that. With Bugsy Malone as well. Like
Yeah,
you're like, hang
yeah,
on,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great. The timeline in my mind doesn't work. I'm like, how how was he in that?
You be careful. Someone's gonna take that gun and wrap you with it. What? We talked enough.
Horizon. Obviously, you've worked with forgotten his name.
Kevin Costner, yeah,
Kevin Costner. I mean, I love Kevin Costner. I don't know how that fell
yeah,
out of my head, but
yeah,
you've worked with him a couple of times on various projects, and now this is like it feels like a kind of, well, he hasn't directed a feature film since 2003, which
yeah.
now it's his return, and it
Mhm.
feels like a Dances with the Wolves type-esque
It is.
thing.
Yeah, so there's four movies that he was working on since before Dances with Wolves. So I think it's like 36 years or something like that.
Wow. Well, talking about
And
people taking a long time to get there, that mean just shows
yeah,
you, like
right.
James Cameron,
Yeah,
it's a long
sure.
process.
And it really is this the story of America seen through this small town called Horizon. It's just an epic saga. It's one of the best things I've read. And he's one of my heroes. I mean, because he's financing the movie, and I feel like he's kind of like he just doesn't care if this is something that is sort of like a magnum opus for him. That he's just like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't, you know. But this is a great story. And I just he's doing, Monument Valley, all the classic John Ford locations
Mm.
that you feel so privileged. St. George, which is in the southern tip of Utah, and it's known as the Gateway to Zion National Park, which is just like, and we're shooting in the park, we're shooting in all these places. So it's got that scope as
Mm.
well, and just the same crew members that he's been working with forever. He's just a class
Mm.
act, I
Mm.
guess.
I
I don't know
can't
if that's a
cannot
way
put
of but yeah, I would I want to be Kevin Costner when
when you grow up, when you grow up.
I
Yeah, no, he's I mean, he's one of the last sort of, he's a movie star. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's
truly.
still, and he's had such longevity, and it's incredible. It must be amazing to get to work with him, multiple times on various projects. But
I'm not really in one or two. I think I'm in like one shot for each film, but it's sort of anticipating the character that
right,
I'm
fair
doing.
enough.
He comes in number three and sort of, yeah,
Yeah, well, seeing the cast, I mean, there's so many people in it and so many great names and everything else.
yeah.
I presume it's hard to kind of tell who's in which one and everything else. But
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly.
check out the Patreon at patreon.com/life and film, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life in Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Betterhelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9 to 5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, Betterhelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm. And back to the show.
Oh my God. I watched Strange Darling late at night on my own in the dark. Oh my God.
There have been screenings in the morning, like at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's got to be even worse for people like
Wow. Along with
coffee.
breakfast. Yeah. Genuinely, I've been doing this podcast for 4 years, and that was the film out of all the films I've watched for this that blew me away the most, man. I just thought it
Oh
was
my God!
beautiful,
Wow.
man.
Oh, thank you.
Genuinely loved it, and the fact that you know, because I saw that you were in it, so I was expecting to see you in there somewhere. But the fact you did the cinematography and the camera operation on this film just blows
Yeah.
my mind.
Oh,
But it
yeah.
looks beautiful, man. It looks
Oh,
absolutely
thanks. Yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, I've been working towards cinematography for 15 years now, really, and really kind of like all my life, photography, because my mother was a photographer.
Ah.
And and it was just something that a friend of mine, JT Molnar, sent me a script, one of many that he'd been writing and working on, and this was just something that spoke to me within a half hour of finishing it. I called him and really just sort of begged him to be involved, to just help get it made. And I have a facility here, and we have gear, and so that was part of it. And then it was, you know, the script and the work that he had done on it really just you know, it was the motor behind everything. It was I think it was financed within 3 months, and there were several companies that wanted it, and it was just kind of like this perfect little package.
It's a special film, and it's something that I want to talk about in depth, but I also don't want to give away anything, because for people to see this film
Yeah.
without knowing anything is obviously
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
is the key, man. So it's quite difficult because I'm like, oh, there's so many bits I want to talk about. But in terms of the cinematography and the way it was shot, it felt very. It reminded me of films of the 70s. It had
Oh,
like
good. Yeah.
that kind of. I don't know if Chainsaw Massacre's a good example, but like
A very specific reference. Even the crawl at the beginning. Yeah, was
yeah,
the idea. Yeah, and
yeah.
the inspiration.
Oh
Yeah.
man, and I just wasn't prepared mentally for this film. And I genuinely, I watched it quite late, and my girlfriend had already gone to sleep, and I watched it, but I was like, I have to wake her up. I have to tell her about this film.
Oh,
I went
wow.
downstairs and I
Wow. Oh
was
man,
like,
thank you.
I need to tell you about this movie, and she was like, don't tell me this kind of stuff when I'm trying to get to sleep. So I was like, okay, we'll park it and we'll talk about it in the morning.
All right.
But
Let me know when you've had your breakfast and everything. Yeah, right. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. And I noticed that as you say, you'd been working towards, cinematography over the last 15 years. I did
Yeah.
notice that you're credited as a camera operator on Flight of the Phoenix. Is that true?
No.
Oh,
Maybe. I mean, maybe they let me jump on a camera at one point, but that was way before.
mm,
Yeah, I mean, so I had a visual effects company for a little while, and the partners and myself ended up growing it, and we sold it, and it was kind of a moment for me to assess things and step back
mm,
and really kind of look at my life, and I kind of tripped into just following something that I got really interested in,
mm,
and sort of just got pulled towards. And that was 15 years ago, and I was shooting music videos and commercials when they were still, prevalent and I guess relevant, because
mm,
that's just like a wasteland of an industry at this point, with all of what's going on with
mm,
AI and whatever. Um, but it was a great medium for me to cut my teeth on and I started with digital cameras and sort of have a technical inclination, and started working with red cinema cameras, which were great, to really just get an idea for lighting, and you just like, this is immediate image that comes up. And then at one point, I don't even know, I think it was 8 years ago, I wandered into a camera shop and said, "What's that thing right there?" They said, "Oh, that's a 35 millimeter camera." And so I ended up buying it for a steal, and I drove across country and I shot 4 rolls of film, and then kind of never looked back. It was just all about
Wow.
celluloid, and that was really how the director and I connected,
Yeah,
through
yeah.
Kodak and all those guys.
Yeah, of course, because this movie's shot on 35 millimeter, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you
And
can
it really is this sort of mythical thing for a lot of younger filmmakers that seems sort of almost impossible or unattainable, and it's not. I mean, it is so attainable and so
mm,
easy. And a friend of mine says that whenever he's shot digital, he always, when he goes back and reviews the next day or whatever, it's always worse than what he remembered it being, and the inversion is what he feels with film, that it's always better. And
mm,
it just really has this sort of like, this magic about it,
mm.
and so yeah, that's
No,
that's
definitely.
my
It's I just
soapbox
yeah.
about film.
No, I love that, and because I've been a fan of yours for many years and all the performances you've done, but just to be completely thrown by this and watch it and realize you shot it, it was just kind of like mad, because I love film as well. I just
Yeah, I'm
obsessed,
sure.
and just seeing you kind of jump into another chair and just do it like that as well, is incredible. And
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is something you want to do more of and
Oh,
experiment with, and
definitively.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the genesis of this place, because I always had this idea. I mean, right now it's kind of like the LA real estate market, especially for younger filmmakers. There's no point of entry to make movies. I mean,
Mm,
you have micro budgets that are 5 million, $7 million, and it just becomes more and more impossible. And people want to, they want to take less risks as a
mm,
result. And so for me, I kind of wanted to just figure out a way of going out and making a film on film,
mm,
without having to be dependent on significant financing, if it
mm,
were,
mm,
where I can kind of go and, if there's something that's like $50,000, 100,000, I mean, that's a pretty specific number, that it can actually be plausible to just go and get your friends and go make movies. And this is kind of, I mean, this is just, um, I look at movies that are, thrillers, that are being made for $150 million, $200 million, and it just becomes
mm,
insane to me. And I don't know where all that money's going. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of it's most of the time above, but not to get into the weeds on it, but it just became a thing that really inspired me to get a facility together. And then when I read JT's script, it was a great opportunity to sort of test the idea of that.
mm,
And it definitely had its pitfalls, and it wasn't perfect, but there was something there, um, that shows that it's possible. And so, yeah, I definitely do want to go into it again, but maybe more focused on working on my own material, and wearing multiple hats in
mm,
that way.
mm.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, you have a budget for $7 million, and you're expected to go make a movie in 18 days. And by day number 2 or 3, you're just clobbered. You're behind. You're making a
Yeah.
schedule. You're not making a film.
Mm, mm.
Um, and so how do we help that out a little bit? That was sort of the idea of this place.
Yeah. Is that how quickly you shot it as well? And was that roughly the sort of budget that you were working with on that?
No, we started out. That was one of my stipulations. We started out with a 40-day schedule, and for a movie of this size, that's really considerable.
Mm,
And it was, um, somewhere. I mean, I guess I'll just be explicit, and I hope that I don't get in trouble for this. But
I
it
can
was
always
somewhere
edit around
around.
anything if you don't want it in there, so don't
Oh,
worry.
okay, yeah. But it was somewhere around $3.5 million for a 40-day schedule.
Mm,
Which is really great. And you're starting with something, and it's something that's realistic, and you have some breathing room in there.
mm,
And we were sort of over scheduling, and things got adjusted when the studio came on board, and then we had, COVID, and we had to deal with that, and that was, I don't know, that was a lot of the budget. So the budget went up and the days went down, but we still maintained a 32-day shoot. Um, and for an 80-page script with four characters, really, there's six characters in the movie, but
mm.
that's pretty great. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really something. Again, that's something that you normally look at and you go 18 days for that.
Mm, mm.
And so, this is one of the ideas. For yeah. Sorry, I'm going on and getting
Oh man,
lost.
no, it's fascinating. No, fascinating. I have to say as well, before I watched it, I was hunting out a trailer or clips or whatever, and the only clip I could find was and again I'm gonna try and not give anything away because I think that's really important. But the scene where there's a chase and he
Mhm,
gets out the truck and he fires the gun in the car.
mhm.
And so seeing that clip set me up for what I expected the film to be without giving it
Right,
away.
right.
And so I think I hope and I pray when the trailer comes out that there's not, because there's things now you see the whole film in a trailer and you go and
Yeah,
see it and you're like, well, I feel like I've already seen this, and I haven't seen a trailer yet, but I hope that there's nothing that kind of
yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. There's different interpretations of the trailer. The trailer came out yesterday, and
Ah,
and
right.
for me, I think JT and I were both a little concerned.
Mm,
Um, but for me, I think that even if it does sort of trickle something there, it still is interesting enough.
mm,
And I think really the performances from the actors are compelling enough to just it
incredible.
makes it worth seeing no matter what. I mean, that was that
100%.
was that was the big sort of I think success of the movie
Mm,
was JT's directing, writing, and editing, and but the performances from the actors, I mean, that's just in a movie like this, that's just the most
mm.
important thing.
Oh yeah, no, they both. I mean, both of the two leads are just incredible,
Aren't they? Yeah, yeah.
just astonishing. Because I've seen both of them in various projects before, and they've always been great. But in this, I was like, holy shit! Like, there's moments where you're like, oh my god.
Because it's really free and it's raw
Yeah, it
and
feels so
it's
real.
uncensored. Yeah, but
Mm,
but coming from an honest place. Yeah.
mm,
And there were people that had problems at first with certain aspects, because you read a script like this and
mm,
the expectation is like, a scream queen sort of, a fashion model with blood all over, or whatever.
mm, mm,
And there was a concerted effort to focus more on the authenticity of who this person was. But also, what's cool about JT is that his other job, he runs the largest haunted house in the world in Las Vegas, which is where he grew up. And he deals with costumes and designing creatures and ghouls and so he has a bead on that. He's been doing that, I think, almost all of his life.
mm,
He has a bead on what an iconic costume or character might
mm,
look like. And it's in the trailer. She's there, but the blonde hair and
mm.
the sort of the bandage over the leather jacket.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
I know that they worked on that for I think like 5 days or something like that.
Yeah,
I
and the
mean, that
red
was like a big
shoes.
thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was something that really struck me actually when I was watching it. I was like, this already feels iconic, like
Yeah.
that image. And as you say, there's like, well, again, don't want to give away, but the hair changes and stuff. Yeah, it had such strong imagery, and I mean, one of the many things that worked so well about it. I feel like I could talk to you about this film for ages, but I'm trying not to like
Oh,
go
cool.
on and on
Yeah,
about it. But
sure.
I absolutely loved it. I have to ask as well. I mean, obviously you came into this and you're obviously friends with the director writer, and he sent you the script, and you were explaining that you have equipment. Is that a production company that you run then that you've?
Yeah, it is, but I don't. I honestly don't. I don't even know what I would call it. I guess it on the surface it would be that or a rental house,
Mm,
but it's not. I mean, it's not. There's definitely an exchange there, and I need to keep the doors open and the lights on. But it really is the focus is to be able to go and make bigger films for a smaller price and
mm,
a more spread out schedule. And to be able to actually go and make a film. And sometimes I was working on something with a friend of mine who was making a film for 2 years,
mm,
and he would call me up and on the weekend or whatever it was, and we'd go out and I mean we were shooting it on 35 millimeter film, and so it that's the idea or the sort of ethos, because this is the time frame that he could do that in and the way he wanted to do that. And if something isn't working, then you go back and you get it. And I don't want to I hope that doesn't sound gauche for me to say that, because I really believe that anybody can make a movie like that. It really it was like this realization that I had, where it was like, oh right, the cavalry is not coming, and you just have to like go out and make your movie the way you want to do it, and don't be dependent
mm,
on people or on all of these misconceptions that you need X, Y, and Z to go and do that. You look at a filmmaker like Sean Baker, who made that, Tangerine on an
mm.
iPhone,
Yeah,
right?
crazy. Yeah.
And he got to know the people, the performers that he was working with, and they trusted him. It does take uh, a long time, and but this is the notion of making films. You when you have unlimited funds, and I don't know if it's unlimited, but working with James Cameron on Avatar, who I think is just incredible and so
Mm,
inspiring. Um, but I remember the first one, he was saying, yeah, we're going to have sequels, so be ready for that. And I think there was 7 years that went by, or 5 years that
yeah.
went by before we saw scripts, because he was figuring things out. It takes time.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
but yeah,
Even for
anyway.
someone like that who,
Oh, sure, yeah, on that level,
yeah, it's
who has
crazy.
a lot of resources.
Mm,
It's the focus has really become the economics and this thing with streamers where they buy it by the yard, and it's like, how much content can you make? And the competitive thing where you hear about, each episode in a limited series costs $15 million, which is,
yeah.
it's crazy, and then you look at it and it looks like soap opera television that's been,
Mm,
like, you don't, what are they doing here?
mm,
You start to plant all these expectations within, the younger generation of filmmakers, where it's just like, no, I mean, I really think you just have to um, pick a camera up and find something, a story that you really need to tell, and go figure it out.
mm, mm,
Um, and it's funny because when I get on a soapbox like that, I feel like I'm thinking about like three people in my mind, personal friends that I know, and maybe it doesn't apply. Maybe people are doing this in the
mm.
world, but anyways, yeah.
No, yeah, no, fair enough. And it is funny how these budgets have just gone mental, and without being too downbeat, but the cinema at the moment and the box office is all over the place. These films that people think are going to do so well, and then they don't make their money back, and it's kind
Yeah.
of we're in a bit of a mad place at the moment.
Yeah, and then the you spend 150 or $200 million on a movie and it flops, people get, clam up, and I think there was that one guy, I forget the writer director who at the last Academy Awards that I heard about, where he got up on stage, he said, instead of spending $200 million on one movie, why don't you spend $10 million on 20 movies?
Mm,
Um, And yeah, I mean, I guess it would be interesting and good to get back to that. And also, I really do believe these fluctuations, and this is going to be sound ridiculous and almost like a conspiracy theorist, but I really do believe that film and celluloid play a big part of that. I'm of the generation where most of my career was done on film, and there was just before cell phones became the most
Mm,
prevalent thing on and when the cameras were rolling, it wasn't a sacred thing for the actors, but it was a sacred focus for the director and for whoever else, the cinematographer,
mm,
and everybody would corral at the end of the day and watch dailies of the scenes they had shot the day before, and it was just a different
mm,
feeling now, whereas opposed to, if you have 18 days to make 2 hours of content,
mm.
there's not that's a that's a hard 18 days on anybody.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is, after those 18 days, you made a movie. Like that's amazing. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
that's true.
Um,
That's true. Yeah.
but then there's
I mean,
obviously
but
the edit and everything else. But
yeah, but or yes, you made a movie, but oftentimes you feel like you made a schedule,
mm, mm, mm.
and it becomes like what, yeah, I mean, well, sorry, I don't, but
No,
yeah.
no,
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are incredible movies that have been made. I mean, maybe Tangerine was made in 18. I don't know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's no. I mean, I myself am an actor as well, and I've only ever really done low budget British movies, so I know all about the 18 days. That is,
Yeah,
that's where I live. And it can be long, 6 day, 6 days a week, and it
sure.
can be rough. So I'm right there with you, man. I
Yeah.
don't know so much about the Hollywood movies. I'm trying to get there, but
Most embarrassing moments, yeah.
do you have an embarrassing, maybe an audition moment, or maybe a moment where you froze on set, something that was utterly humiliating that you wanted the ground
Oh,
to swallow you up?
virtually every day, I would say, on a movie or anything. I mean, yeah, mainly when I was a kid, the first thing that popped into my head, I remember, um, oh, I don't even want to say it's so humiliating. Uh, gosh, no, I don't know. That's a hard one.
You're like, I can't, I'm not telling
I
you that
don't,
one.
yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't, there's like five, I mean, I could probably write, that would be a good book, actually, of all the
Just do it.
humiliating things that actors have gone through and had to do.
It's the auditions that are usually the ones that
That's it.
I mean, because I don't want to put you on the spot and come up with them, but I'll give you one from me so that you just to sort of so I
Okay.
take a bullet. But so an example, I this is a long time ago, and I've probably told this story before, so I might edit it out. But
Yeah.
um, I auditioned for this film. I was going in and meeting the casting director, and it all went really, really well. And this was when I just sort of started out. I was 18, 19, and I don't know what happened, but I was doing the audition. It was all good. And then she said something, and I didn't quite catch what she said. And I thought she said, "Can you take your top off?"
You were like, oh yeah.
And being a teenager, I just went, "Sure," thinking this will get me the job. And I did it. And then she looked at me and went, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I thought you said," and I don't know what she said, but it wasn't that. And then she was just like,
Wow.
yeah, sorry, put your shirt back on." I wanted the ground to swallow
To
me.
swallow you
And
up. Oh my
but I got a call
God.
back, so I don't know, something
Wow.
something.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was uh
We know he's game for
yeah.
a lot of
Well,
things.
it wasn't
Yeah.
quite flying to Italy, but it showed that I was willing to do
Yeah.
anything for the part, I guess. But
So I was okay, I'll try. So I was 10 years old, and I had done this TV show from the 80s called Highway to Heaven with a guy named Michael Landon from Bonanza. And he had a show where he played an angel, and so my character had leukemia, and myself and another actor, Josh Miller, we had to shave our heads bald because we were going through chemo. And so during that time, again, child actors were few and far between. So we'd go work, and then my mother and I, we would go audition for a bunch of other things. And my mother, for the auditions, went down to Hollywood Boulevard and got, I mean, it was a wig, but it was like more like a mammal that was just on my head. And so I would wear this thing for auditions, and then and I always wanted to like work out the bits with my mom. And so we would work out, and we were doing this comedy thing audition for, I forget what it was, but I thought, oh, it would be interesting to go in there, and after everything's done, I would take my hat off and the wig would come off. And I thought that would be like a funny bit as a 10-year-old. And my mom was like, great, do that. So I'm in there and we're doing the audition, and I can tell at that age, even at that age, that it was just not going well. And
Oh,
it
no.
was like not funny. And there was a room. It was back in the day, because now you have to do a reel, right?
Yeah.
When back in the 80s, you would go into a room and there would be like a sea of people. I just remember, I mean, literally 10 people to be in this room. So I'm doing it. It's just bombing horribly. And I just automatically sort of commit to taking the wig off. And I hear,
Oh God.
because there's this kid who looks like, I don't know if they thought I had, I don't know what, but they gasped, and then it was an immediately like push out the door, like get
Oh
out,
no.
I think somebody started crying.
Oh my
And so that
God.
was, yeah. And even then, I don't know if it's that funny of a story, but
So you got the job then, obviously.
no,
Not
definitely
that, not that
not.
one, not that one.
No,
No,
no.
that's amazing. I love that. Oh, I mean, this has been wicked, man. I'm a really big
Yeah.
fan, so this has meant a lot that you've taken the
Oh,
time to
thanks. It
do
was
this.
great
So
talking to you.
thank
Yeah.
you so much, and I
Yeah.
mean, all the best with the movie. I can't wait. Is it got a UK release? Do you know?
I think it's coming out August 23rd globally. So that's
Oh,
cool. Yeah, and
wicked.
in theaters too, which is really
Yeah,
exciting. So,
nice. I'll go and see it again, and I'll take my girlfriend.
oh,
Even though
cool.
I've blown it, I've told her everything about it, so she
No, that's
she
all
won't be
right. It's
surprised
still
about
worth
it.
it. It's still
Yeah,
worth
still
it.
it's
Yeah.
still worth it. It's still worth it. And I just before you go, I just want to say as well that your character in Friends was one of the best, had one of the best storylines ever, and it's
Oh,
just
thanks.
iconic, man. But
Cool,
anyway,
man. Thanks, Elliot.
thanks, man, and take care. All the
It
best.
was great meeting you. Yeah,
Thank you.
hopefully
You
we
too,
can work
man.
together one day. Yeah.
One day I got my fingers crossed, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. All
Cheers.
right. See you, man.
Bye.
Thank you to our guest Giovanni, and thank you to his team at IDPR. As always, thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp.